Joining me now, it is the Mayor of London, Boris Johnson. Mr. Johnson, first of all, thank you very much for being with us this morning.
Well, my pleasure. Let me just say on the bonus tax, you know, you've got to face the fact that these guys were going to get hit one way or the other the end of last year, just because they didn't seem to recognise the full extent of public concern about these huge sums of money they were going to be paying themselves. So, although I've expressed concern about the consequences, I couldn't really see any political alternative, frankly. There was going to be some sort of fiscal retaliation. Yeah. And, you know, what I've really been trying to get across is that if they want to stop politicians punishing them in this populist and short-term, short-sighted way, I think the bankers as a group have got to come to the table and say, you know, we understand what society wants from us, and, you know, the masters of the universe can be servants of society kind of thing. They've got to show that they can contribute. That's what I want to see. Do you think that you see actually any move towards them doing that at the moment? I see a little bit, and I'm very pleased that we have a thing in London called the Mayor's Fund for London. I believe there's a similar thing in New York, and, you know, some money has now started to come in from leading banks, and I'm really grateful for that, and I'm very pleased. I think the banks need to do much more collectively. You know, they could do things as a group to finance big welfare-to-work schemes for young people. Everybody's worried about this recession. Is it going to be a double-dip recession? Are we going to have a continued youth unemployment in the way that we're seeing in London? Why don't the banks see what they can do to finance activist welfare-to-work programs so that private agencies get the upfront costs of placing people in jobs funded by the banks, and then when the money comes in from the cuts in the benefits that are made possible, the banks are able to make a turn on the deal. That's the kind of thing that they should be doing. And looking out here at this beautiful view, can you not see why people actually want to come and live here? Could you imagine living here yourself? Listen, of course, Switzerland is a fantastic place to come to. It's a fantastic place to ski. It's a world-class inventor of Toblerone and the Swiss Army knife and all these valuable things. And, you know, I love Switzerland. Of course I do. But, you know, my view is very strongly that London is the business capital of the world. It's the best big city on earth, and it's quite interesting. Of course, you know, I am apprehensive when I'm told of the movements at the Waterhole and people starting to think of moving off to Zurich and Zug and places like that. But I don't yet see the stampede. I think that for the foreseeable future, London is going to be the place that these guys are going to want to do business. Of course,
you know, the Big Bang showed that banking prosperity does rely quite heavily on regulation. If there is over-regulation, either from Europe or now from President Obama's plans, do you think that that is actually going to be a huge threat to the city?
Well, you've got to have regulation. Patently, these guys, you know, you cannot have a situation like the one at the moment in which they are walking away with colossal bonuses which are guaranteed by the taxpayer. You know, what it means is that they can effectively do the same thing over again. These guys have somehow got to be regulated in such a way as to oblige them to insure themselves against any future collapses. Why should the taxpayer have to step in and then see them you know, haul off these huge sackfuls of loot again? That can't be right. So regulation is necessary, but it's got to be done at an international level. And what I would be very unwilling to see are populist short-term measures that particularly penalise one jurisdiction or another. And in my case, obviously, London.
So George Osborne and you then are fairly aligned on this idea that Obama's plans cannot be, you can't go it alone.
George Osborne and I are on this matter absolutely indivisible. And we completely agree that it's got to be done collectively, and you know, that's the way forward. But you've got to be wary with this kind. I mean, when I say that about regulation, you've got to be wary that the stuff you bring in to address the last crisis doesn't really just end up exacerbating the next crisis, if you see what I mean. You know,
over-regulation.
Well, it's got to be the right kind of regulation.
You're in quite an interesting position, aren't you? Because actually, politically, bank bashing is quite a common sport these days. And yet, as the Mayor of London, you're in a position where you actually need and want to see the financial services thriving. So you're walking a bit of a tightrope.
No, I mean, I'm an exuberant defender of the banks, and I believe they do a fantastic amount of good for society, and anybody who wants to, you know, anybody who sets out as a matter of public policy to diminish the share of
London's share of the world banking industry, or to attack London's financial services sector and reduce it in size in the delusive hope that manufacturing will somehow step into the gap. They must be stark staring bonkers. Banking, financial services of all kinds, provide about 9% of UK GDP, 13% of value added. The taxes from the hedge funds and private equity alone, never mind the banks, would be enough to fund 200,000 nurses, 165,000 teachers, and the entire Olympic budget. Now, I ask people who attack banking, where else are we going to get that money? I think that is a point that is well understood by people in the street.
Just before we go, I hear that there's another tube strike threatened in London. What are your thoughts on that?
Well, I very much hope that there will be a deal, and it is vital that people who are thinking of going on strike recognise that the particular difficulties that Londoners are facing during a recession, and think very carefully before they put commuters to unnecessary inconvenience.
OK, Mr Johnson, thanks very much indeed for joining us here in Davos today. Thank you.